Hello everybody, you're very welcome to this episode of Programming and Algorithms. In this episode we're going to look at how Python implements what are called menu-driven programs. So that is programs where, when they're run, the user gets a menu. So, exactly as I've said, when the program is run, you get a list of options, and the user, normally each option has a number associated with it. The user types in that number, and then they get to choose what to do. The handy thing about this in terms of programming is each menu option normally refers to a separate little method or module. So then that makes the development of the programs easier, since you only have to focus on developing each module one at a time. So let's look at a simple calculator. If we had a module called add that takes in two parameters x and y and returns the result of adding them, if we had one called subtract that does the same but subtracts them, one called multiply that does the same but multiplies them, and one called divide that does the same but does a real number division on them. Then if we had, in our main program, if we said to print out 1, 2, 3 or 4, do you want to add, subtract, multiply or divide, read in their choice, whatever it is. So read in the character value that they're going to say and assign that to the variable choice, and then read in the two numbers they want to add, subtract, multiply or divide. So then all we need to do to implement the program is, if their choice is the character 1, then print out the sum of the two values. But we're not doing the addition here. As you can see, we're calling the method add, subtract, multiply or divide, or the module or method, whatever name we prefer. If it's 2, we subtract. If it's 3, we multiply. And if it's 4, we divide. If it's anything else, we say it's an invalid input. Now this is really important. When we're designing these menu options, we must take into account the possibility that the user will accidentally type in, maybe they want to type in 1 and they type in 11 by accident. So we have to take into account if they type in an invalid choice. So if they type in 5 or 6 or 0 or -3, we just print out invalid input. We could get into more detail on that, but that's fine for this particular program. So that's a simple calculator. The second menu-driven program I want to talk about is based around JK flip-flops. So we know what a JK flip-flop is. It takes in input J and K and a clock value, and outputs Q and Q bar, or not the value that's the not of Q. And we know we can peel back the cover of the flip-flop, and we know it's 4 NAND gates, and it's wired up as follows. So our basic requirement is to produce a method to describe what NAND is, and NAND takes in two inputs, A and B, and if A is true and B is true, then we say it's false. Otherwise, we return true. Now we need to create options. Let's say the inputs are both false for J and K. What this does is print out a picture of the first two NAND gates, and then evaluates what the NAND of false and false and NAND of false and false are. That is the two input values. And then the second half of that picture prints out the other two NAND gates and calculates the NANDs of what will be the output of the first two. So the false and false will become a true, and the false and false become a true. So we'll have true and false and true. And then that'll be our first pass of the JK flip-flop. So that's how we could create an ASCII picture of the flip-flops. And we could ask the user in the same way, have a menu, and say, do you want to input values into the flip-flop of false and false, false and true, true and false, or true and true? And we're saying those values are the in J and K. And then we get them to input their choice, and if they choose 1, we call a method called false, which we saw. If they choose 2, we call a method called false true. And just for fun, I haven't implemented true and false and true and true. All I've said here is function yet to be implemented. So what I'm showing you here is this whole program will still work even though some of the functionality isn't implemented. So menu choices 3 and 4 will just return a message saying function yet to be implemented. So I can work on the method true and false, and the other method true and true, and just keep working on them and have these messages come out while I'm testing the other two to make sure they work, if that makes sense. So that's menu-driven programs. Thanks very much. We'll see you on the next episode.